Okay, everybody, here we are. Thank you so much for your patience. Sometimes on a Friday my hair looks like I've been running around, definitely. Sometimes
Looks
on a
so cute.
Friday, we're just running around here. So thank you so much for your patience. Janice, how are you?
I'm really good. Thank you for asking. I feel, in fact, when you asked me that, Kate, I looked up and the sun is out.
Oh, I love that
It's
story.
been so gloomy and cold and rainy. And now you said, "How are you?" And we are going live on Facebook, and it's sunny.
And it's sunny. God, I
Yeah,
don't know your hair looks great. You can tell I've been flying around the office today. That's
you
the
look
trouble with being able to
fabulous.
see.
Everyone,
Being able to see.
doesn't Kate look great?
I know. Well, don't fish for compliments, as my grand would say.
Well,
Don't go fishing. Yes, and so Geeta is over linking on Facebook, and Geeta, we would love it if you did drop a few links over on her YouTube feed as well. Thank you so much for doing all of that. There we go. Let me center
thank you,
myself.
Gita. And I know
Let me center.
Christine and um, I'm trying to think of maybe Lorraine. There are a few people who could link also know our site.
Yes. Well,
Um,
she is on it, JP.
I
So
know.
I
Okay.
think we're good to go. All righty. Well, let me let's get started, shall we?
Okay. What
This
are we
was
working
a
on?
piece. Yes. So this I have from me. Really, seriously, my hair. Knock
You
it
want to
off.
go? Do you want to go fix your hair and come back,
No,
and
I'm
I'll talk
no,
about the
no.
video I watched yesterday of you and Emily doing 3D macrame?
No.
It was awesome. It was like you were the Click and Clack brothers or whatever. You just
Oh, yeah.
had
Well,
it
she's gonna come back on. We had a nice chat a few weeks ago or last week or whenever it was. So she'll be back soon with us for sure.
I so miss her. I
I do
really miss
too.
her.
Yeah,
We all do.
we do. So let me center this. So we have Janice, of course, made these notes. And so I have so many notes for you, and these notes are going to go up when I get back home tonight. I'm going to scan them in and they'll go up on Janice's project today. But you've got a whole look at that great drawing of her piece and stuff, right?
Oh,
So it's really fun, right? So this will be up under the project a little bit later. I'll use my scanner at home. But what Janice created was, and I'm going to add this
yeah.
camera in so you guys can see
You can
what's
take me
shaking
out.
here.
Yeah, take
No,
just
there we go.
oh, okay.
There we go. I have the power to get it all
You
together.
do.
I do. So this piece that you guys saw in the on the website, and of course you guys all know I have my shtick that when Janice is here, I always get thrown off kilter. But you guys know that you can find all of the information on the project that we're doing today, which is called Fun Times, and the products from today's broadcast. You can jump right over to our website, right on beadshop.com. Okay. So, kind of the starting point for this piece was Janice and I wanted more beads because we love beads. That's one of our common loves among many things, but
Yes.
beads, right? And especially vintage glass beads. Way back in the day, Janice, when
Mhm.
we would buy from our friend Ava, and we'd buy those vintage German and Czech glass beads. And we just loved them so much. And those beads now are a little bit thinner on the ground, right? We don't
Well,
have
even
access.
before Ava, we would
Hmm.
get them from like York Beads on 37th
Yeah,
Street,
yeah. We'd
and
go to
there was
Manhattan.
no real shipping. You took them in a cart back to your
Yeah,
hotel room.
right. You did. You tell me the
You went
story
into
of,
the basement. You went into the
yeah,
basement.
Well, you and your mom would go and wheel those beads down Fifth Avenue,
Yes.
right? After you
Yes.
do a shopping trip, you'd wheel
Yes.
them down Fifth Avenue and go look at them in your
Hotel
hotel
room.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have photos of when now York Beads may that wonderful company rest. It was the skinniest building. It was in the jewelry district. And remember how it was tall and skinny?
Yeah.
And it had like, I don't know, maybe as big as this Facebook room, which is not very big, our
Yeah.
broadcasting room, was the front. And that's where, if you didn't know, you would
Yeah.
go and you'd buy the beads and he'd charge you $1 million
Right.
for them.
Right.
You'd go on your way. But if you knew, it was like getting
Yeah.
into a speakeasy, and you
Yeah.
would go in back and
Yeah.
you, from the basement where all the crystal was, with the boxes of crystal melting into
Mm-hmm.
the floor, all the way up to the top floor,
Yeah.
you would just buy, you'd get your bin and you'd unroll these little pieces of paper and see,
Mm-hmm.
oh, those, yeah, I'll take those. So those days are gone, unfortunately, of those days. But that long story to say, we found these bead mixes, and I'm going to move Janice's necklace out of the way for a minute and toss these beads down. And so yesterday we launched, and I'm going to make this the spotlight now.
Oh,
Yesterday
luscious.
we launched, yeah, some new beads, right? And we're really in love with these, what are called kind of mixed strands or table cuts, right?
Yeah.
I think that's new. I think these are the older ones. You'll find them all on our site under check mixes, I think. They're on the
Mm-hmm.
homepage. There's a link to them. But we loved them so much that we added some colors. But can you see how? Let me pull this up a little bit. Each strand, and in the color families, there's some changes too. So not
Mm-hmm.
every single strand that you get is going to be exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be some are all together the same and some are different. But the new ones that we launched this gray strand, which I am
Mm.
so into. Look at that. Look at that bead,
Yeah.
that table cut, and this ammonite bead here, this tiny owl. We launched that one in gray. We launched this spring mix because we thought we didn't have enough of this yellow, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And I love this flat one here.
Yeah.
These flowers, really cool. So there's that one. And then we launched just a purple. We have a purple pink, which I think is the purple pink. And then I think this is the one that we launched. I think that one. So we have a bunch. This one's fall or forest floor or something.
Forest.
Forest, yeah. I like that. So these really harken back to our roots, our bead roots, really, which is why they spoke so loudly to us, I guess.
Do
This
you
is
remember?
well spotted. This is an elephant, Leslie, in this strand,
Yeah.
and Janice uses it.
Yeah, I use that crystal copper or white
Mm-hmm.
copper. I use
This
forest,
one. Mm-hmm.
and then I use
Did you
natural.
use?
Was it natural or
Yeah, natural. This one. You
natural?
use these three. Mm-hmm.
But
Right here.
Kate, do you remember when we had the shop? We used to have that really big African basket that was
Mm-hmm.
filled with what we called broom beads. And
Yes,
those were all the
exactly.
leftover beads from the floor of the factories, the check
Mm-hmm.
factories. And we
Yes.
would sell them by the scoop or we would sell them by
Yeah.
the ounce. We kept changing how we were going to sell them. People would like sit there in front of the basket. Oh, it's by the scoop.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to pick out each bead I want
Yeah.
to
And
put
put it
into
in the
the
scoop.
scoop.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just, and then we'd always be left at the bottom with like the little spacer beads or something.
Right.
But it
Right.
was just so much fun. people would sit there for hours
Well,
going through the beads.
yeah, going through the beads. Well, when when I left bead shop and opened my store in San Francisco, I took that idea, like so
Yeah,
many ideas.
yeah,
We'd always share ideas. I had a trunk, an old trunk, and I put that trunk, we put a false bottom on it. So the bottom, there was like, I don't know, like this much space.
right.
And we did the same thing. I got Indian glass beads, and then those Indian glass beads were done, also lamp worked, really
Yes,
beautifully done. And we just toss them in. And so people would always ask, when are you going to replenish the trunk? And so
yeah,
we have to do it about once every couple of weeks. We'd dump
yeah,
them in. And people, I had little hassocks, they would sit around,
yeah,
4 people deep, and they would just go through them.
yeah.
And yeah, we sold them by the gram, I think, is what we did.
Something, but of
Yeah.
course, you took the basket and made it bigger and
I
better.
made it bigger because I like a big, well,
But it paid the rent.
I had a lot of space. That is for sure.
Yeah,
People loved those beads. So if you have a brick and mortar store, you guys, if you have a brick and mortar bead store or some kind of brick and mortar craft store, having a bin that, because when I was little, it was buttons. Our Beverly's Fabric had a
yeah,
button bin that I would go through, and each
yeah,
button was 10 cents, and I still have those buttons. So a
yeah.
place where people can create community around
Mhm.
a trunk, right? Like that was fun.
Yeah, yeah,
So these beads that are here, these hopefully will be able to keep in stock. We've been able to replenish. The beads themselves may vary from what you get, but they're all really beautiful. And so you talked a little bit, Janice, about how I'm going to move all these beads. Okay, I'm going to move them over, and then
okay.
which ones shall I work with? Let's pick those
I
that
don't
I've
know. Do you
cut.
wanna close your eyes and mix them up and then just pick 3? Because my notion is
Sure.
you can pick any
I'm
and
looking away. I'm not looking. I'm looking here.
okay, so just
Oh, here you can see. I'm looking away.
okay.
All right. I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose that one.
Mhm.
I'm going to choose this one.
Okay,
My eyes are closed. Can you tell?
okay,
And this one.
okay.
Oh, all right.
What'd you pick?
Not the easiest.
Well, let's see.
Let's see what we've got. So I've got these 3
Oh, do you want to take out the one that, is that the one
that
I
you
used?
used. Yeah, that's the one that you used. I'm going to close my eyes one more time.
Okay, pick
I've
something.
got them over here.
I
Oh,
thought
here
the
we go.
3 worked, but
They
okay,
did. But there's that blue one. I chose that
okay,
one. Okay,
okay.
great. So I'm also going to lay out I want to mention that this project not only can be a necklace, but I brought these guys up.
Yes, the bracelets.
Yeah, this is a piece, Janice, that you did, I think.
Yeah, I did. It's got my little
Yeah,
tag.
it's got your tag on it. So this could be a charm bracelet,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't have to be a necklace. And this is one that I did
Yeah.
where and we have a couple of other charm bracelets
Yeah,
and stuff.
where's
I
the
just
one
grabbed
with
these.
where you did the drops? Where
All
you
the
did the
drops, yeah, I don't know, it's on the
Oh,
wall
okay.
somewhere. But, here is where I've mixed the beads and the chain.
Mhm.
Okay, so I've strung, and then I've also put in 2 strands on the chain.
Mhm.
So this technique you can adapt to whatever works for you.
Yeah.
So
You can
these
also go
are,
to, on the website, besides today's project, you can also do the drop-down menu of projects, go to bracelets, and you can find the charm bracelet.
yeah,
And
the
that
charm bracelet.
video
Yeah.
you did on how to find the link, the right side of the link, you really
Yeah.
go in depth. It's really
Yeah. It was a good, that was fun because charm bracelets have always been my thing. And I've done it before. I did a tour of all of my charm bracelets
Uh-huh.
that I have in my collection. I'll have to do it again because I've acquired a few
Oh, yeah.
more. But for every decade of my life, I have a charm bracelet, a traditional charm bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love them so much. So what I did was when we were photographing this piece, I went ahead and I cut it away because I want to show you guys how we connected it together. So here's the ends. Janice did those
Mm-hmm.
ends here. And you can see I just cut open that link. We're going to wire wrap it back together. And then she also used chain to add
Yeah.
a little bit of an extender. So we'll play around with that. So now, while you're looking at this, Janice, why don't you talk a little bit? I'm going to grab a chain link because I didn't grab any chain, so I'm going to
Okay.
do that. But why don't you talk a little bit about what you want to talk about to introduce this project?
Well, what I do talk about in the
In the handout
handout
here.
is
Mm-hmm.
that the first thing you want to do is a Kate technique, which is free your beads. You want to get them off the strands, no matter what their colors are. You want to free them and be able to look at them all together. And that's what I did. Is I took the 3 strands that the office sent me, and I didn't pick them, they picked them, and I separated them, and all of the beads really worked except maybe 5 dark green ones. I just really felt that they just had, too much intensity to them. I needed things that were more sort of toasty and shaded kind of warm grays. And so I just started taking the beads and I had head pins. I didn't know what chain I was going to use, but I just spent an afternoon wire wrapping each bead. I added a spacer above it and then an 8/0 seed bead. The seed bead was, I think, 664. I want to say six.
Yeah, and it's the 8/0
Yeah, it's an
seed
8/0.
bead.
Did I say 6/0?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm just
Kate, could you do me a
reiterating.
favor? Could you take that
Hmm.
bottom strand and just flip it? The bottom strand, the one closest to you. Yeah. Will you just flip
Oh
it?
yeah, because the
That
succulent charm is.
I'm going to say probably what you don't want to do is put a charm that's one-sided on this because it's just then a pain. But I did it because I really like that succulent charm.
No,
But
this
you
was it
have
was
to
right.
be
It was just
aware.
upside down.
Is it now backwards? Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay, sorry. So I'm just
I just
obsessed
needed to
with that
flip
little
it.
charm being the right
I
way.
know.
I've got to
Somebody guess what
in
time
therapy.
Janice's email came in this
Like
morning.
at 4 a.m. or something.
Yeah, yeah. Which I chose to ignore. But
Yeah.
but Drea answered. Thank God for Drea. No, I'm just kidding. So here we go.
So
Looks
what I
good.
did is I wire wrapped each one so that they would be consistent. There are a few
Hmm.
lotus beads that don't have the spacer bead, the donut above it, don't have the seed bead. The seed bead helps capture everything so they won't move around
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
on the head pin. But I used
Hmm.
the dot head pins. I could have used just straight head
Yeah, here
pins.
are the dots. I
Yeah,
grabbed
maybe
some.
even used an 11/0 seed bead at the bottom so that it would have a little dot at the bottom.
I had just sitting here on the table. This is
Those are
left over from
perfect.
my geode piece, right?
Yeah.
So anytime I have little mixes of beads left over from a project, I just toss them in a little baggie. So this is perfect, right?
Yeah.
That little baggie.
Yeah.
So the bead, someone is asking what type of bead is to the left of the elephant. This is from the natural strand, and it's hard to see. It looks like an intaglio, which I
Yeah.
love.
Isn't
It
it a
has
dragonfly
a
or
dragonfly. Yeah, dragonfly on that. And that one is on, though depending on what it is, but right now it's
yeah.
on that natural strand
Yeah.
right there. You can see it. So I'm going to go ahead, Janice. I'm going to put these off to the side for a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll put them together later.
Yeah, we'll put them back together later. We'll talk about the anatomy of the necklace. But
Mhm.
here are the ones that I chose with my eyes closed.
Right.
Okay. And it's very funny. I guess the bead gods are working with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this has a little bit of yellow and that kind of stuff
Mhm.
from the geodes. So you used all the same bead to unify this. I'm going to go ahead and um, dump these out,
Mhm.
and I'll probably use all of these colors, I
That's
think.
fine.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and cut these strands apart.
Okay.
Okay. So we're just going to clip that right in the middle with the courage of our convictions. Now, you clipped all three, Janice, and then did you sort them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sorted them basically, um, the way I did it, honestly, I do it that way by color, but I also do it by the ones I don't like.
Yeah.
I just,
Like I mean I like these crackle ones, but I'm going to put them over
mm,
here.
yeah. Um, like you just find ones you like, and then others you just go, I don't know if I like it so much.
There's those blue ones I like. That one, that green one. I like those. That's kind of green. This is all kind of,
Isn't it funny how things just sort themselves?
there we go.
Now there's one in the blue group at the bottom, right at the top. That one.
This one?
That
Yeah.
goes over there. Yeah.
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 That goes there. And
Um, yeah.
maybe that goes there. I don't know. You don't have to be too precious with this, you
No.
guys. There's no wrong answer. So then you can decide. So then I can make some decisions about this too. About, do I want to kind of graduate this color wise and have, to me, the color that is the anchor color in this is this blue for
Mhm.
me because it's the darkest. And out of that anchor color, let's say that I want to go, just for me personally,
Mhm.
maybe I'd go large in the middle and going out smaller. Like, let's take a look. And someone was asking about this bead also, I think, to the elephant. I'm showing you guys the elephant strand. So these are both from that strand there. The elephant is in the crystal copper strand.
The
Okay.
elephant had to go in the center,
Yeah,
but
in the
I
center.
am even, you're steps ahead of me. I
Am
just
I?
started by wire wrapping what I liked.
Oh,
I just
okay.
took one bead at a time.
Sure. And prepped them that way.
Yeah, and so if you want to,
Sure.
just demo a wire wrap of one,
Sure. I'm
and
going
then
to do
I
that right
we
on
can
this
get
one.
and then I think we can get out 3 pieces of chain and
Hmm.
plop them down and see how they
Yeah.
look.
Well,
But
I just grabbed one chain,
mhm,
but I can get some more. I grabbed the paperclip chain
mhm,
because I love paperclip. I love making it when I make chain. I like to make it.
yeah.
But it's really fun to use. And let me just say that your chain lengths, so everyone knows, you used about a foot of chain, right?
Yeah, it was
Or
like
thereabouts.
11, 10 and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and 10, something like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't vary that much. It's about a foot of chain, which is perfect
Yeah, about a
because
full.
that's how
Yeah.
we sell it. You don't need to buy 2 feet and then only use a foot and a half. Whether you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
make this long or you're going to make it short, it's about that much that is the centerpiece. If
Mm-hmm.
you wanna go all the way around your neck with a charm necklace or charm bracelet, then it's the length of whatever your neck is.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that about 11 to 12 inches was enough to,
Was about the right
yeah,
length.
exactly.
So let's focus on the mechanics of wire wrapping here for
Okay.
just a second, because I have a pet peeve that I'm going to share with all of you. And if you do your wire wraps this way, it's fine, whatever. I've been wire wrapping literally since August of 1992, right? So I've done a lot of wire wraps in my life. So I'm going to share with you, and you've seen me do this a million times, right? But I just want to go through this and I want to share some of these tips with you. And I'm going to show you where my pet peeve comes in that makes you, that is usually where the downfall of the wrap happens. Okay. So I'm going to choose my bead. I'm going to choose this one and I'm going to choose this one as kind of a backup bead here. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of all this. We're going to clear the decks. Now to wire wrap, you guys, I have 4 tools here. I've got a flat chain nose, regular chain nose here. I've got this bent chain nose right here. I've got my round nose plier and I've got my cutter. Now, these two, the bent chain and the straight chain, are benders and grippers for the wire, right? This round nose plier is your looper, and that's all it does. This plier doesn't grip, it loops. So if you remember that, that is the first step to getting a perfect loop. And of course, you need a good wire cutter to cut your wire. So we're going to jump in. We're going to get one of those dot head pins. I'm not going to even put anything extra on this. I'm just going to wrap it, okay? So I'm going to start by coming in with my flower, and since this is directional, you want to make sure that your flower is facing the way you want it to face. Okay, and I'm going to get really up close and personal with this wrap. So now, when you make a loop, and this is my wire authority voice coming on. Can you tell how my voice is? I've got my wire authority on. The goal for our loop, you guys, is we want a loop that's nice and round and centered over the rest of your head pin. And you want your wraps to be nice and even and straight, right? What we're not going for is kind of a wrap that kind of bends over and looks like that, right? No, we don't want this. What we're looking for is a nice rounded loop with enough room so this dangle can dangle along the chain and that this loop is centered right over your head pin. Okay, so what we do is to start that really nice round loop, I'm going to come in and with my index finger, I'm right-handed, so I'm using my right hand, I'm going to make that bend with my finger over the top of the bead. Okay, just like so. So step 2, this is really getting into Kate teaching. But step 2 is we bend. And let's say on this one that I do have a little 8-aught here. Even so, I'm going to come in and I bend and I make that angle. Okay? I make that angle, just a nice tight one with my finger. Now, after we do that angle, where's my next one? I'll use the rose. And you had some of those, I put them all back. You had some of the donuts, so this would be a good time to use one of those donut beads. I would bend. Now, once I have that right angle bend, I'm going to come in and I get my looping plier. Okay, this is my round nose plier. The heads on this tool are round, and wherever you put your wire, you insert the wire in the head of the tool, is how large your loop is going to be. Okay, so here, let's say that I wanted my loop, I just know from experience that I want my loop to be about that big. Okay, and these head pins are about a 21 gauge, I think, but a 20 gauge wire will also fit through there. So you can see I didn't go all the way around. So let me do that. This is just a Sharpie marker that I'm using to mark the heads of my tool. And in my beginning wire class, when I would teach it over and over and over, this is kind of how I would show people. You bring that bead, you put that angle in the round nose pliers, and see how I've lined it up with the mark that's on my tool. I come up and over the top, and this is what gives me a nice round loop, because you're using the heads of these pliers like a little mandrel to shape that wire. Now I need to complete that loop, okay? So what I do is I take the loop from that top jaw, slide it to the bottom jaw so it still lines up with that mark. See how that tool, that mandrel, fills the loop. Now we're going to come in and I'm going to bring this wire underneath the head of the tool so I make a nice round loop. Can you see that nice round loop right there? Okay. When I take the tool out though, can you see how my loop is bending over like this, right? It's skewing over to the right. So all I need to do with this looping plier is roll it very carefully. So I've centered that loop over the top of my right angle bend. Okay, now this is ready to wire wrap. We call this the little man in the scarf, right? Here's his little head. He's kind of jolly because if that's his bead is his tummy, right? And this is his scarf blowing in the wind. Okay, this is my pet peeve, I'll tell you. This round nose plier is not a gripper, right? If I close the heads of this tool and I turn it to the side, there's no flat surface there, right? It's a round plier. It's made for making round loops. This right here, kids, this is your gripper, right?
Children, did you get that?
Kids, we got this. This is your chain nose. That's the plier that grips. So can you see how I can come in, and if I grip that loop like this, right, that loop isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to stay nice and round. Then I can bring the little scarf back just a little to pull it into position. Now, with my fingers or with the bent chain, I can come in, grab the tip of the wire, and pull that wire 180 just below where that loop is. See that right there? That was just below the loop. I'm not pulling it down this way. I'm kind of pulling it up towards the loop. Then I grab it again, swing it around the back. And my left hand, which is here, and my right hand is here. So I have a little bit of tension between my two hands as I'm wrapping so that the wire stays nice and straight. Now I've got that little seed bead here, and that seed bead can be a little treacherous because it's glass and it's fragile. So I want to be very careful when I use the tip, see, of my flat nose plier. It's the gripper, not the looper. I come in and I give it a little bit of, just push it in just a touch. And I've actually wire wrapped a little too far. I need a little bit of space there. Can you see that space? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my wire cutter. I'm going to wedge those tips right in, right next to that wire wrap. And you want to mind where this piece of wire goes, okay? So you want to turn it, cover it to keep it from hitting you in the head or your neighbor if you're beading together. We want to put that aside. Also make sure that doesn't go on the floor so it goes in your foot or your pet's foot. And we want to get that bent chain and we're going to push that little tip right in. And if we need to straighten that loop just a touch, we can. But there is your nice round loop with the perfect wire wraps right below it. Okay, I know I really drove that home, but that little looping, and I'm going to wrap a few more now at Kate's speed. Using the correct tool for the right job. Now, sometimes I leave it in that loop, in the looper, right? And that looper, the round nose, fills that loop so I can come in and wire wrap it. But practice. This necklace, just use the right tool for the right job and just be really present for each step of that wire wrapping. Be as precise as you can be.
Now, when you start getting all your beads wrapped, they all look good together.
They do. They really do. And you know what? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the gold and the blue goes with the yellow beads. You have 2 or 3 different color blues there.
Yeah,
different
they're so
patterns, great. But you know what? They all work together.
Yeah, they do. And you know what? Pride, Janice, goeth before a fall. So you remember how I was pushing this with my finger like this? Mm-hmm. This is to make that rosary loop. You know what I didn't do?
You didn't put the neck.
I didn't. And this one kind of automatically had a neck. I did it, but I didn't point it out. So this one, as I started to wire wrap, I'm like, where the heck is the neck on this?
Yeah.
So let's just go back. And I'm going to make that neck. This is the other thing, because I was like, this is my other pet peeve. I set it up, and then I just glossed right by it. So let me point this out. If I'm wire wrapping, I need that little bit of a neck to wire wrap around, like this one has. Okay? So I'm bending that wire at a right angle over the top of my bead. So can you see here how that gives me a nice clean right angle? Okay? If I used my looping plier to make that angle, we don't have a very crisp, so see, some people do this with the round nose. Okay? They'll grab it and then they'll do a bend. Now, can you see the difference between the bend that I did with the chain nose and the bend I did with the round nose, right? We want that crisp bend because when I go up and over the top, line it up, I go down and underneath, there's my scarf, I put it center. That makes my loop nice and round. See, there's that little bend. If I didn't have that little bend, right, so there's the one on my round nose, I come in and I go up and over. Sometimes I don't have that defined bend for the loop, if that makes sense. So sorry about that, you guys. I was so adamant telling you about that bend that I didn't discuss this little
I was going to ask you, when do you create the neck, the bend for the neck?
Yeah.
But they look good. I wouldn't redo
Yeah,
those
they look fine.
wire wraps.
No, they're fine. So there's my little neck. And I automatically, my hands knew what I was doing, even though my mouth was saying something else. So I automatically left a little bit of space. But there we go. Can you see how that's a nice, there we go. That looks good. And this head pin here, someone's asking, what's the best gauge for a head pin? So we carry them in some different gauges. You can also make them. These are kind of close to 20. They're more like a 21 gauge. Mm-hmm. I think with these larger beads, pretty much all of the beads on these table cut strands will fit through these that have either the ball or the flat piece on the bottom. You could go up to 20. Or you could pop down to 24, but I think 24 gauge on this size of the beads would be too thin. So you just have to have a variety of head pins and kind of play around with the wire gauge to see what fits right. Because you want the wire to fill the bead hole, but you don't want it to be so full that you can't, that the bead doesn't have any movement, because then the bead will crack.
Once in a while, you have a bead that has a hole that's too large, like the Nun faceted barrel.
Oh,
I have
that barrel
one.
right there.
Yeah, I have one that fits on with the dot head pin, and another one that just went right through. So, but that's a different bead with a different bead hole size. And I had two, one fit and one didn't. So you might have to put a little spacer at the bottom, a little 8/0 or 11/0 to fill in if it doesn't
Yeah, to
fit
fill
the
in that
hole.
space.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like what you're making though.
Yeah, no, I think it looks pretty good. And I think what we can also do is, now the jump ring size, Janice, you use the 5mm, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to grab,
You just want something heavy enough that it's 18 gauge. It's heavy enough to do the job. You don't want those jump rings opening and your bead units coming off of your necklace.
Right, exactly. I'm going to grab these too and show you. I'm grabbing a couple of things so I can show you guys some of the differences here in the jump rings, because there's no hard and fast rule for this, right? And so again, this is something where you can, like we like to say, audition. We say audition the beads, right? If I'm doing them in a project, you can audition your jump rings as well. Okay. So here I grabbed a few jump rings. I'm going to move all of these over, because your jump ring choice also has to do with maybe the size of the chain that you've chosen as well. So here's the paperclip chain, and this paperclip chain is probably about a 16 gauge wire. Okay?
Is that the medium is that the medium?
This is the large. This is the large paperclip.
Okay.
And you could do this with all three sizes of the paperclip chain. It would be great. So we carry a variety of different jump rings here at Bead Shop, and you could also, if you are metal inclined, as I am, you could also saw or make your own jump rings out of different gauges of wire. But with this, I grabbed the 4mm because I had a couple of those loose. I grabbed the oval in the 6mm, this oval 20 gauge that I want to talk to you about. I also grabbed these really heavy copper ones. These are I'm trying to remember what we call them on the web, but it's the heavy gauge. You can look that up.
Let me check.
And then here are the textured jump rings.
Please.
Hold, please. This is the 9mm oval, and I love an oval ring for this project, and I'll tell you why. This is the 6mm textured circle ring here too. Okay, so this 6mm, I'm going to pull this out. I really like the way that this texture adds a little bit of panache. It's kind of hard to see on the camera. Let me grab them. See that texture?
Kate, are those the 5mm 18 gauge?
These guys.
Yeah, the heavy ones. Because we also have a 5.5 16 gauge.
Oh, that's what these are.
Okay.
The 16 gauge. That's these guys right here.
Okay.
And again, it's always good to have a variety of rings in your jewelry findings collection, you
It's
know?
essential,
Yeah.
essential.
So there's also a question, Monica has a question about how do I feel about wire wrapping straight onto the chain? I feel good about that too. I have a couple of stipulations. So let's just add some pieces to this chain. Okay. Let's say that I've measured out my foot and I find the center maybe, or you can go from the end, or you can wire wrap all of these like you did, Janice, and kind of lay them out and figure out how they go. So let's say we've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Chain is like if you look at this paperclip chain, you can see that you have links that are facing you and links that where the side is facing you. So they're flat. So it's a, a
Mm-hmm.
chain that locks in that way. Some chains, however, like what you used here, let me see if I can find it. This guy,
I think they should all be on the same wavelength.
yeah. So see how this one has those oval links, and then it has this fancy link here. So when Janice was wire wrapping them or putting the charms on, she really made sure that she was putting it on the correct side of the link. Because if some had been up here and some had been down here on the bottom of the link, the links would hang a little off kilter. It's not the end of the world if that happens, right? Because this
Mm-hmm.
is such a quote unquote neck mess anyway
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
it all kind of jumbles together. But if you want things, especially if you're doing something that just has one strand, you want to really make sure that you're wire wrapping it to the correct side of the loop, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to connect. Let's go ahead. I'm going to lay this down and I'm going to connect one to this link right here. I'm going to use this small, this is our 4 millimeter, and let's just see how that fits. Okay, because this will tell you. I'm going to get my link. I'm going to grab it with my bent chain nose here, 2 pliers, and open it up. Okay, so you can see there's that opening. Now I'm going to grab my little dangle and I'm going to scoop up the chain and I'm going to close it up. And I'm going to firmly grab onto both sides. There's my bent chain and I'm going to pull this back, tighten it up, and then I'm going to check the movement. And this jump ring, and if I turn it to the side, that jump ring works just fine.
Mm-hmm. I just didn't have them with me.
Right. No, but it works fine. But
Yeah.
yours that you chose, it's a little bit of a larger ring, but
Mm-hmm.
that also looks fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I
And
just wanted to
by,
answer, could I just answer
sure.
Monica for a
Yeah,
second? The
sure.
reason I like jump rings for a project like this is that they give the bead units like an elbow. They just
Mm-hmm.
allow what it, this that I often saw when we had the shop where people would make, let's say, bead units, and they had really long necks wire wrapped, and they didn't use a jump ring, and then the wire tended to bend and kind of the stick would
They
not
would
look
kind of,
right.
yeah,
So it's
they
just a
bend out of shape a
personal
little
thing,
bit.
Monica, that
Mm-hmm.
I like, if it's carefully closed, the jump rings I have learned, because I never trusted jump rings. I figured they're called jump rings because they jump off your necklace. But I finally figured out that I do like them. I do
Mm-hmm.
like them. And I wanted to say something, Kate, about the flower bead, that
Uh-huh.
you instinctively put the dot right inside the
Mm-hmm.
indentation,
You
and that's
read, get out of my head,
perfect.
Janice.
Okay, you tell the
Yes.
story.
No, you tell it. No, that's
Well,
exactly
I
right.
found that some of the beads, if you look above, you'll find some of the other flower beads. They have a hole that goes through a flat side and a hole that goes through an indentation. And I think it works better if you get your start of your head pin or your dot where the flower petals come together and the flat part is at the top, because it's hard to wire wrap into the indentation of the petal.
Right there. You can see
Yeah,
that that ball nestles. And
yeah,
here's another one. I'll put it on the opposite way. If this is down and
yeah.
see that little V, now I could fill it maybe. I could
Yeah.
fill it, but there's still, you see a little bit of wire there,
Mhm.
right? So I wanted to mention something here. Vi says, she says, I think folks rush to make or finish a project when wire wrapping directly onto the chain. Enjoy the process and you'll get a consistent and beautiful piece. I agree. And I'm totally guilty of this. That sometimes when I'm wire wrapping, it's like the last 3 or 4 wire wraps, I'm like, will this never end? So I kind of rush and I put them on. So this really is something where you want to take your time a little bit, right? So that the placement is right, so that you're not, you're not rushing. So who cares if you don't finish it in one sitting, right? Just let it simmer and then come back to it with fresh eyes.
Yeah. Well,
I
the
want to show
beauty,
you what.
sorry,
Mhm.
the beauty of
No, go ahead.
using the jump rings, is that I had to hold it up multiple times. I would do one strand the way I liked it, then I
Right.
would do another one, and I found that when they were weighted and I was holding them up, I actually moved some around more than once
Mhm.
till I got it
Mhm.
where I wanted it, the placement. Um,
Mhm.
so, that was like the secret of the jump rings, is they let you change your mind.
Right. So
Yeah.
like with this one, if I were to wire wrap this one directly onto this link,
Mhm.
I'm committed to that link,
Mhm.
right? So I want to show you if I were wire wrapping this right onto this link. And I've done that. I do that a lot.
Mhm.
I do a lot of
Mhm.
link to link wrapping. See how I made this loop a little bit larger so it's more of a jump ring size here so that the loop isn't, well, I do that automatically with most of my loops. You can see that's a pretty big loop as well. But I make the loops pretty big so that when it goes on this, so let me show you, I'm going to put it on. What I do for this wire wrap loop is I have it here and I open that loop kind of
Mhm.
like it's a jump ring, but see how the loop is still intact, right? It's still, the integrity of that loop is still there. So I'm going to come in and I know I'm going to put it right there on that loop on the bottom link. I jump it through so it goes on. Then you also kind of have to finagle your pliers in there so that you can hold this loop flat without movement. This chain is flopping off to the right. Then I tilt, pardon me, I tilt this bead down a little bit towards my tray so I have room here to wire wrap. So there's my tilt, and I come in and I 180 around, grab that tip again, bring it around, re-grab it, bring it around, and continue to wrap until you have just a hair, and we're going to clip this away. I'm going to grab some water, Jan.
Okay. Um, There was something I just forgot that I wanted to mention. Oh, shoot. Now I can't. It's gone. I thought, oh, perfect. Kate is getting a glass of water, and I'm going to add. Oh, do you remember about this? And now I have forgotten. So by doing the wire wraps the way I did them, I was able to lay the 3 chains down and then drop the bead units on top and design how I felt the layer worked. So there's one chain that doesn't have a lot of beads on it, and that's because it didn't need a lot of beads. It was just when I went to do that 3rd strand, it just filled in where I had holes.
So I'm going to lay out I'm going to lay out your 3 strands here just real quick. But you can also see, I want to show you when it doesn't have the heat's on in here, and I think that's what kind of dried out my voice. So sorry about that, everybody. I'm fine. No COVID. I'm fine. Just a little bit of dry throat here. See how the wire wrap loop, it makes the bead a little shorter, the dangle a little bit shorter. And this one that has the loop on it here, you can see the movement, it's just a little bit better. So for something like this, I'm a big advocate of adding those jump rings. You just need to make sure that that jump ring, when you close it, that little ring as it comes together, that it kind of snaps into place. Okay. Andy also has a question, and I'll answer this. Or Janice, you can go ahead and answer it if you'd like while I'm moving this. But her question is, do all of the beads have to have the same number of wraps? It seems sometimes when I wrap, some wrap around twice and some wrap around 3 times.
That's a really good question. The way I would answer, because I'm not the wire wrapping expert, is that after doing it for a number of years, you get to a certain stage where you're using the same tool, you're using the same chain nose plier, you're putting it.
So you get your default.
Yeah, and you get the neck the way you want it. You will get different quantities of wraps depending on what wire you use. So if you're using really thin wire and fine gemstones and you're making bead units, you're going to get more wire. And so usually you'll default to a smaller part of the tip to get just the 2 or 3. It's a really good question because I get about 2.5 wraps.
Yeah, that's about right.
2.5 to 3. Anyway, somewhere in there is where you're going to end up. And the answer to the question, does it matter? Not really, unless you've got something where you're creating like a pattern across and everything has to be the exact
it's really the same
distance. Then it does add up and you will start to see why it's important to kind of try to be consistent. Otherwise, not really.
So for consistency's sake, you remember when I marked my round nose. You can also mark the tips of your chain nose plier, and you can come in and you can line up that little mark. So when you bend with your finger, that bend is going to be consistent across all of your beads. And then, like Janice was saying, you kind of start to default to that. I'm going to make this loop a little bit smaller. You start to kind of default to that size so that when you wrap, and you can see you can also wrap with your fingers. You don't have to do it with your tool, whatever works for you. But see, my default is about 3 wraps like this.
Mhm.
And see, that's about the 2 on that side, the 3 there. I've got that tiny bit of space, which I then wedge my cutter into, cut, and tuck.
Now I remember what I forgot to
I
say.
love that. Okay.
So when you were wire wrapping, you took it over 180 degrees and then you stopped, and then you picked
Mm-hmm.
it up again, and then you went around another 180 degrees. Do you want to tell everybody why you let go of it and then pick it up again?
Yeah. What I do because of that, let me wrap this one up and over,
It's
down and
definitely
under.
more obvious when you have a long piece of wire connected.
Yeah.
But if you don't let go of the wire while you do the 180, Kate's going to show us what happens.
So here is my piece that's ready to
Mhm.
wire wrap. Okay. Now, if I come around and I keep wrapping,
Mhm.
right? A
Yeah.
lot of you just do that, right? Not a lot of you, but I mean, if you do that, notice how, number one, I had a death grip on this plier in my right hand. So I've marked my wire, I've nicked
Mhm.
it right up top here. See how my wrap is super wonky times, right? It's like not really wrapped very well. I've the wires pulled down, so it's slanted here. And can you see how I have this little short piece of wire that also curled around the tip of the plier as I
Yeah.
was wrapping? So if you're really mindful and you do those 180 degrees as you turn, you're able to lay that little piece of wire in right where you want it. And then you stop, you
Right.
regrip, bring it around again. So it just adds a little level of precision to your wire wraps.
Mhm.
And this is heavier gauge wire on that 21 gauge. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to get away with it if you have a thinner gauge, like a 24 gauge or even a 26 gauge. But as you're doing this heavy gauge wire wrap, you really, I mean, you can see this, right? You can see the difference between
Mhm.
these two wraps, right? So take the time, and this will definitely give you the practice. And so when all of these lengths are laid out, and I'm going to get back to Janice's chain. Now, JP, do you remember which one was on the bottom? What the,
Y yes. So that one is the top.
okay,
Let me see all of them again and remember. So
sure,
that one is the top. I think the My Fair Lady is the middle.
the middle. Hmm.
The longest one is on the bottom. It's pretty,
Yeah, it's this one, I think.
um
So this one, I just want to make sure that everything is facing the right direction. These are on the bottom.
and when I was working on it, Kate, I literally piled one chain on top of another.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
There we
just,
go.
like,
That's
brought it
right.
right up so I could see. I held the last link with the other last link, so I saw how they. Yeah, sometimes I even used, like, a piece of wire. I took a
Right,
piece
to kind
of
of pull it
22
together.
gauge wire to hold them together while I held them up. Yeah. They just
Let
it's
me
a
get this.
mess, and you're gonna have fun making your own mess.
Yeah, your neck mess. So
Yeah,
here is this last one,
yeah,
and
and
that
when
just
they
lays right in.
yeah,
And when they come together, that's kind of how they lay. Okay.
yeah.
So Hale has a question. Can you talk about the different cutters and how I pinch the end of that wire in? So let me wire wrap these together and I'll talk about that as I do it. Okay. So what Janice then did for this project, there they are. I'm like, gosh, where did they go? So I want the hook. Let's say that this is my front, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's facing forward. Let me get these out of the way.
I'm very old-fashioned. The hook, I learned growing up, the hook is with your right hand because
Right, with your dominant hand. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know why that matters to me, but when if anyone sells jewelry, that's the side that
the default.
Yeah.
The right. Whoops. My phone, for some reason, my phone went out. Hang on 1 second here, JP.
Okay. Well, while you're fixing that, I'll show everyone this necklace that I have on. It was made by Kate.
I did make that. Oh, you know what? My phone, for some reason, it wasn't charging.
So
sorry about that.
This has got turquoise. It is this beautiful Venetian bead, a hollow.
It is a nice piece.
Oh gosh, it's a cute amber, natural amber, old original turquoise. Look at the, oh, I've got to figure out where my right and left is. Look at that bead.
Yeah,
Isn't it pretty?
That's a faceted amethyst, I think.
What are we going to do?
Sorry about this, everybody.
What are we going to do, everybody, about getting beads from the earth?
Well, we're doing our best to, I mean, these glass beads, I think, are a good, I'm going to put myself in here too. I'll just get the phone back up, you guys. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Sometimes when I do this, if my charger wasn't perfectly connected, my phone wasn't charging, so I just need to get back to.
We just, with the scarcity of some beads, we just have to learn to pivot. Glass is becoming more popular. Percosia is coming out with crystals that are replacing Swarovski, who's now, they're not selling to bead stores anymore. We just have to use what's available.
Yeah.
And they never spoil. That's the beauty of it. They never spoil.
No, that's the beauty. Well, I'm going to let that come up, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to improvise. So bear with me here, everybody. There we go. Here I am. You'll get to see me do this kind of up close and in person here. So I'm going to do this close. So what Janice used, and you guys can see this, and I'll get that top view coming back hopefully in a bit, but she did this wire wrapped link using the metal beads and then these little lotus, beloved lotus beads right here, right? And then we added that extender chain. So this necklace really can be as long or as short, really adjustable. Okay.
Yeah, and I used a big link chain. You could go a bit smaller, but
it's kind of fun though, looking on the back of it. I think it's good. And you can also make your necklace longer and shorter by however many of these little rosary links that you make, right?
I also mentioned in the handout, you could, if you wanted it much longer, you could also add a section of chain into the wire wrap bead unit so that you get more length. I like my necklaces close up. So it's not, I make it for myself because I'm holding it up to myself. So I think that you just make it the way you want it. You can, and like you said, you could make a charm bracelet. You could.
No, you definitely could.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to, Janice, so we don't have any feedback, I'm actually going to take you out and for just a second, and
That's
I'm going to
fine.
add this top view back in,
Okay.
and then you guys will see it, and then we'll go from there. So bear with
Okay.
me here, you guys. Just a moment. Okay, you guys, can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
Oh, let me, hopefully it's not a reverb, but Janice gives me a thumbs up. Can you just hear me? Just once? Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry about that, you guys. So what we do here is I'm going to come in and I'm going to use all three of these here. And I'm just going to do this really quickly so I can get back to the front facing camera so we can all be back together. So sorry about that. But the technology is a little touchy sometimes when when I have too many things connected. So I'm going to get this 22 gauge and I'm going to make this little connection. So there's my 22 gauge wire. I'm going to cut, usually to measure this, if I'm making just one wire wrap bead unit, I'm going to go ahead and get this here and measure my finger because I usually have my finger with me. So I usually have that to measure. Now I'm going to bend with this tool at a right angle. And I'm going to go up and over. And Janice, I have you muted. I can't hear you right now. I know that you're talking to me, but I'll put you back up in just a second as soon as I finish this. Okay. That's the beauty of going live. There's always adventure. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to connect this to this side. And I'm going to wire wrap this. See how this is 22 gauge here? So the 22 gauge, it's easy for me to just wire wrap it there with my fingers. Now, the cutter, Hale, what you were asking is I use a nice flush cutter like this. I come in, I clip, and that little tip, I get my bent chain, and see, can you see that side view? And I give it just a little hug. That's it. Now we'll add this bead on, and we're going to add all three of our strands. We're going to bend over that. This loop needs to be a little bit larger because all three of those strands need to go in it. So I'm going to go a little further back, making my loop
using the heads of that tool as a mandrel. Can you see? That's a nice size there. Now on this side, it doesn't matter so much, but the second side, when I put it on, the order of strands will matter. So this is my top one, and everybody's facing the right way, right? So then I'll put on my second one. And again, everybody's facing the correct way. Then I'll take my third and slide it on. And again, before I wire wrap it closed, I can check that all of those little dangles are hanging on the bottom rung of the chain. And then I'm going to come in with that flat nose, hold it here nice and tightly. And I'm going to do this again with my fingers because this wire, this 22 gauge, is really malleable. And Janice, get ready because I'm going to take this top view off and I'll get you back in so we can chat about this. So see here, I get that tip of that flush cutter right in there. Get that bent chain nose. See, there's my little tip. I'm going to get that bent chain. I'm going to lay it right on top of the bead and hug it in. Okay, so that's connected. I'll get a close-up view and then we'll add JP back into the mix. And I'll take this camera out. But can you see how? Then when I do the second side, I'm going to line everything up so everything's right. And so it'll sit correctly. So I'm going to remove this one.
Sorry.
Just take me off.
No, sorry, that was me.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everybody. That's what I was worried about, that layout would happen.
Yeah.
But I got it. Sorry about that. So, how did I do, Janice? Okay?
You did great. You absolutely did great.
This is that left side.
Mm-hmm.
Here's that top strand.
Mm-hmm.
Here's that second strand. And here is our third strand. So now I'm ready to do my second side, which I'll do right now while you can chat about this.
Okay.
If you like. Any last looks, last things. And we're ending right on the right time anyway. So sorry about that little glitch, you guys, of technology, but sometimes that happens.
Well, we went a little over because it's Free Tip Friday.
It is, but this was such an epic piece, JP.
Thank you. And we're doing it on Friday because I got it late to California.
No,
I forgot about the holidays. But I did want to mention when you were wire wrapping that when you cut that piece of wire about the length of your finger, when I first started wire wrapping, I never really knew where I should start that bend in the wire, that I always started too high up on the wire because I thought the beads took up so much space. But it's about an inch down, right? It's not halfway, but it's a little bit above halfway.
I always say that it's about 2/3 down here, about 1/3 up there.
Okay, exactly. You've got the
But it's
math.
about the same. Yeah, you know that you need about an inch.
Mm-hmm.
And it also depends on how large that loop is going to be. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to go up and over the top, turn this around, go down and underneath, and give myself 3 wraps. And I wire wrap so much that I know that this little tiny piece of wire, it's not in my focal range here, so I've got to get it back, is going to be about the right length, so I won't have to cut anything off. And you know what I did?
You closed it.
I closed it because I was so excited
Yeah, you
to do
closed
it.
it.
So,
Well, it's okay. It's covered in the handout. It's going
yeah.
to be exactly like it is on the first side.
Exactly.
I want to just add for a last thing, lay out your 3 pieces of chain, or if you're going to just do 1 or 2 or 3, lay out your chains on a nice clean surface after you've spent an afternoon listening to a book on tape and wire wrapping all your bead units, and then start putting them down, looking at the different colors. You may have wire wrapped a few you don't want. You may, Kate, want those purple crush ones.
Right. I may think, oh, those are the bead that make this project.
Yeah, you've got 3 of them. You can use them throughout, to balance maybe it.
Buy it.
But once you've done your project, we hope you'll post it in the bead table group on Facebook, so that everyone can see it and get inspired by it. If you've got lots of beads at home, you can do this with beads you have. Add some of the check glass.
It's a great stash busting project.
Yeah,
That is for
it
sure.
is. It really is. So,
So yeah, so I'm going to just put this all together so you
okay.
guys will be able to see it, but I'm going to hold this one up and this here. So I'm going to wire wrap that closed, but that's it. So we're ready. It's a beautiful piece.
Oh,
It's
I
so
love it.
beautiful. I love it. So just as a reminder, you guys, so that you know where we are with this, you can find us on all of our social. You can go to beadshop.com on Instagram. Drea does a great job. Drea does Instagram pretty much single-handedly, which is amazing. So if you do have your Insta, you can go ahead and put your piece up on your Insta and tag us as beadshop at beadshop.com, the whole word. And Drea will repost your piece to our bead shop stories, which is always fun. So we all can see it. It'd be great. So anything that you make with bead shop stuff or inspired by bead shop, give it that. Just at us at beadshop.com. Drea will see it and she'll add it to our stories so everyone can. And then you can join us over on the Bead Table, our Facebook group. It's a really great, vibrant group of beaders. I think we're in our 3rd or 4th year of our Facebook group, I think. And we have almost 7,000 really wonderful members over there. And we'd love it if you would become one of our wonderful members. So go on over there and join our group. And if you're watching us live or on the replay, you can like and subscribe and turn on those notifications on our YouTube channel right at beadshop.com. So you'll always be notified when we go live. And we do that every Wednesday and Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. You can also shop all of the products in this project on our website today. You can jump over to beadshop.com and you'll see this right now. If you're watching us live, you'll see it on the homepage, but you can also, this project is called Fun Times. So if you go over to our projects, go under necklaces, you'll see it there. You can also sign up for our newsletter for the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products. I've got a curated collection that's dropping soon that I have a project to share with you guys that I think you're going to really love. I'm loving the way it's coming out. So that'll be there as well. So Janice, I think that's it. I think everyone is saying goodbye and they loved it. And my mom is saying, yep, I'm coming home after this broadcast. I'm on the road.
Yes.
But I will be taking next week actually off. I have some family time that I'm going to be with. We're having my beautiful sister Julie. Her memorial is next week, so I'm taking a little bit of time to be with my family. So I'll be off. But I will be back the following week with you. So never fear, just because we're not having any any broadcast next week. We're taking a little bit of a breather. So watch your newsletters. We've got some fun stuff planned for you guys while I am away. So Janice, really fantastic project today. Great use of those table cuts. I'm
Thanks.
gonna finish this wire wrapping and I'm gonna wear it because I love it. I'm gonna
I
bring
would
it
be
so I can wear it
honored.
on. So I can wear it on the broadcast sometime.
Okay.
So have a great weekend. You've got another project in the works. I can't wait for
Yes.
that. We'll be back in March.
Yes.
It'll be
I'm
great.
very excited about it.
So
It's
it'll be a
of
lot of
different
fun.
techniques and different new beads that we're getting in, and
Yeah.
um,
And then this, your project notes, I'm going to take them home with me. We'll scan them in. Andrea will add them to the project
thank you.
later on tonight. So you guys will see these and you'll be able to
Or-
see Janice's great drawings
Or
and stuff. that we've
tomorrow.
got a
Or
lot.
tomorrow. We
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah,
Drea
I'll get it.
posting it tonight at midnight. So
Too late, but it'll be there soon. You'll
Yeah.
see it right on the
today or
project page.
tomorrow.
So
Yeah.
don't you worry. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much. Have a fantastic weekend. Janice, thanks so much for your expertise. It was a lot of
Thank
fun.
you. I couldn't
And we will
do it
see.
without you.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. But
It's true.
well, I will see all of you all in a week. Have a fantastic week. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks so much, everybody.